When two so-called HOA compliance officers showed up to bully my wife about our front yard, they had no idea who they were messing with. They thought she was just a quiet suburban mom, but when they pushed too far, they found out she was a trained CIA agent. And what happened next? Let's just say the HOA won't ever try that again. Our neighborhood had always looked like the cover of a real estate magazine. Freshly painted shutters, carefully mowed lawns, kids riding bikes under the maple trees. On the surface, it was peaceful, but anyone who lived there knew the truth. The HOA ran it like a dictatorship. And at the center of it all was the president, Gerald Whitaker, a man who loved his power more than anything. He lived to hand out citations. Trash cans left out 5 minutes too long, lawn grass a quarter-inch too high, even Halloween decorations that weren't aesthetically pleasing. He used his compliance officers to patrol the streets, men who strutted around in uniforms that looked way too much like real police. We neighbors joked about them being HOA cops, but the truth wasn't funny. One hot Saturday morning, those fake officers made their biggest mistake ever. They decided to harass my wife. Now here's what nobody in Magnolia Creek knew about her. To them, she was just Emma Harper, the quiet woman who worked from home, kept her garden neat, and waved politely at neighbors. But Emma wasn't just anybody. Before we moved here, she'd spent 15 years working for the CIA. Counterintelligence, field operations, and asset extractions in hostile territories. She'd retired to give our family a normal life, but the skills? Those didn't go away. The so-called HOA cops didn't know any of that. They showed up in our driveway while I was fixing the sprinkler system. 2 of them. Burly guys with sunglasses, clipboards, and shiny badges clipped to their belts. "Ma'am, we've received reports that your flower beds don't comply with community code. Step aside. We need to inspect the property." Emma straightened slowly, brushing dirt from her gloves. Her calm brown eyes flicked to their fake badges, then back to their faces. "First, you're trespassing. Second, there's no such rule about flower beds. And third, if you take one more step onto my porch, you'll regret it." The shorter one laughed. "Lady, we're HOA compliance officers. You don't get to tell us what to do." He reached for her arm, and that was his last mistake of the day. In one smooth motion, Emma twisted his wrist, flipped him onto the ground, and had him pinned with her knee. The taller one lunged at her, but she sidestepped, swept his legs, and sent him crashing into the sprinkler system I was working on. Water exploded everywhere. I just stood there, jaw hanging, half in awe and half trying not to laugh. Honey, want me to call the actual police?" She pressed the shorter man's face into the grass. "Already did. Look at the camera." Sure enough, the motion sensor cameras on our porch had captured everything. Within 10 minutes, 2 real patrol cars pulled up. The neighbors came streaming out of their homes, whispering as they watched Emma drag the 2 wannabe enforcers by their collars and present them to the cops like misbehaving school children. But the real shock came out later. Those fake HOA cops admitted they weren't just doing this for fun. Gerald Whitaker had ordered them to harass us into paying fines. Bogus charges he made up because Emma refused to submit landscaping plans for her rose garden. They confessed he told them to make her scared enough to comply. Scared of Emma? Gerald had no idea who he was dealing with. At the next HOA board meeting, the room was packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, phones ready to record. Gerald banged his gavel, trying to look in control, but sweat trickled down his temples. "This meeting," he began, "is to address ongoing non-compliance issues by the Harper household." Emma stood up, calm, confident. Every eye followed her. "Actually," she said, pulling a folder from her bag, "I'm here to address your abuse of power." She laid out everything: police reports, the porch camera footage, even sworn statements from the two enforcers. Gasps rippled through the room. One neighbor shouted, "You sent fake cops to intimidate her?" Another yelled, "You're a disgrace, Whitaker!" Gerald sputtered, trying to regain control. "You don't understand." But Emma wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice dropping into the calm, razor-sharp tone I knew from her old days. "I've dealt with men like you in war zones. You think hiding behind bylaws makes you untouchable. It doesn't. You've been stealing from this community, weaponizing rules, and harassing families. That ends tonight." The room erupted in applause. Neighbors demanded his resignation on the spot, and when he tried to refuse, Emma dropped her final bombshell: copies of HOA financial records she dug up showing Gerald had been funneling fine money into his own accounts. By the end of the night, Gerald was removed, escorted out while neighbors booed. The HOA board was dissolved, pending an independent audit. And Emma? She became the unlikely hero of Magnolia Creek. The local paper ran the headline, "HOA cops harass wrong woman. Turns out she's ex-CIA." Even months later, neighbors would knock on our door asking Emma for advice on dealing with pushy committees. She just smiled and went back to her roses. As for me, I learned two valuable lessons that day: never underestimate my wife, and never, ever mess with a CIA agent in retirement.